plows its way east. Governors in 16 states have declared states of emergency.
Winter storm. More than 200 million Americans are facing heavy snow, sleet, freezing rain, and danger.
Just minutes ago, a chain of events unfolded across the United States that immediately drew global attention. A dangerous Arctic air mass surged across entire regions. Power grids failed, roads vanished under heavy snow, and temperatures plunged to life-threatening levels. At the same time, fire and water forced their way up from beneath the ground. The sky revealed unfamiliar lights, and the sea showed signs of silent instability. These were not isolated incidents. They arrived together, stacking and accelerating. From land to ocean, from the depths below to the skies above, something is clearly shifting. Many are quietly praying, "Lord, open our eyes and guide us in truth." And if you feel the same, leave prayer in the comments below, then like, subscribe, and join us as we uncover what is unfolding right now. A deadly Arctic air mass has descended over the Northeast and the Appalachian region, transforming winter into a full-scale survival crisis. Temperatures plunged far below seasonal norms within hours, leaving no time for gradual adjustment. The cold did not pass through as a typical system would. It settled, stalled, and locked entire regions in place, tightening its grip day after day. Heavy snow buried highways, secondary roads, and residential streets under thick, compacted layers that refused to melt. Neighborhoods disappeared beneath white weight. Vehicles were abandoned where they stopped. Emergency routes became impassable. Ice coated power lines and transmission towers until they snapped, cutting electricity and heat to thousands in sub-freezing conditions. Entire communities were left isolated, surrounded by snow and darkness, with no clear path out. Wind chills reached levels capable of causing frostbite within minutes. Skin exposed for even a short time suffered rapid damage. For the elderly, the homeless, and families without stable heating, the cold was not uncomfortable, it was lethal. Homes designed to shelter became traps when furnaces failed and backup systems froze. Shelters filled beyond capacity. Emergency warnings increased, but response slowed as conditions overwhelmed systems built for normal winters. Nature itself began to show signs of distress. Animals were found frozen in place, deer stiffened mid-step, birds locked to branches, small mammals preserved in ice where they collapsed. Livestock perished in open fields, unable to escape the sudden freeze. In some areas, snow fell with unusual density and texture, forming crusts so hard they cut through paws and hooves. Snowdrifts emitted faint cracking sounds as temperatures dropped further, a sign of extreme structural stress within the frozen layers. Residents reported strange patterns etched into the snow, long rippling lines and sharp fractures forming overnight without footprints or wind. In certain locations, snow accumulated vertically along walls and trees, defying typical drift behavior. The landscape no longer looked natural. It looked strained, compressed, and hostile. This winter no longer behaves like weather. It behaves like pressure. Infrastructure bends. Nature reacts. Human systems falter. What was once seasonal has crossed into something far more dangerous. As Scripture warns, the earth mourns and withers. The inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men are left. Isaiah 24:4-6. The shift is unmistakable. Winter has moved beyond inconvenience, beyond disruption, and into direct confrontation with life itself. This is not a storm to endure, it is a condition to survive. While regions were still buried under snow and ice, a tornado suddenly formed near Cedar Creek Lake, appearing in conditions where tornadoes are rarely expected. Witnesses described a thin, slow-moving funnel descending from low clouds, stretching between sky and ground like a narrow column. There was no typical buildup of heat or spring instability. The air was cold. The landscape was quiet. Yet the rotation formed quickly and without warning. What unsettled observers most was not only the tornado itself, but what appeared inside it. Several recordings show faint, flickering lights moving within the funnel, brief flashes that did not resemble lightning. These lights appeared to pulse and shift as the vortex moved, visible even as the tornado remained narrow and controlled rather than violently erratic. Meteorologists explain the event as a rare cold-weather tornado, formed by unstable air layers colliding under extreme conditions. But the presence of internal illumination raised further questions. Electrical discharge, atmospheric plasma, or light refraction were suggested, yet none fully explained why the lights appeared confined within the rotating column. The tornado caused localized damage, trees uprooted, roofs torn, power lines twisted, yet its behavior felt restrained, almost deliberate. It lingered longer than expected, moved slower than normal, and then lifted back into the clouds as suddenly as it formed, leaving behind silence and unease rather than chaos. This event did not occur in isolation. It followed the deep freeze, the infrastructure strain, and the mounting pressure already gripping the region. The sky, like the ground before it, showed signs of instability, and this was only the beginning. As the atmosphere grew unstable and the ground above locked into ice, pressure below the surface began to release in violent and unexpected ways. On the volcanic slopes of Kilauea volcano, the earth opened abruptly. Lava did not creep or ooze as it often does. Instead, it shot straight upward in towering, vertical fountains, brief, explosive bursts that tore through the air and vanished almost as quickly as they appeared. These eruptions were short-lived but intensely forceful, a clear sign of pressure rapidly escaping after long containment. Columns of molten rock rose hundreds of feet, illuminating the sky in harsh orange light before collapsing back into the crater. There was no slow buildup visible at the surface. The release came suddenly, as if the ground could no longer hold what had been accumulating beneath it. At nearly the same time, far from any volcano, cities began experiencing disturbances that felt eerily similar in nature. In California, muddy water erupted upward from streets and ground openings without warning. There was no heavy rainfall, no flooding upstream. Storm drains were not overwhelmed from above. Instead, water forced itself up from below, breaking through asphalt and pooling across roadways. Residents described hearing a low, hollow rumble beneath their feet moments before the surface split. Brown, sediment-filled water surged upward, carrying debris and emitting a strong, earthy odor. In some areas, pressure pushed manhole covers aside as if lifted from underneath. Streets were not washed over, they were breached. Engineers and city officials searched for immediate explanations. Ruptured pipes, groundwater pressure, aging infrastructure. Yet inspections revealed no clear failure large enough to account for the volume and force observed. The timing only deepened concern. These eruptions from below followed days of extreme cold, frozen ground, and rapid atmospheric shifts, conditions that trap pressure underground and prevent gradual release. What connected these events was not location, but behavior. Fire surged vertically, water pushed upward. In both cases, pressure escaped suddenly after being held in place. What was contained beneath the surface refused to remain hidden. Throughout history, the Earth has shown this pattern. When stress accumulates without relief, release does not come gently. It comes in bursts. In Scripture, this moment is described with striking clarity. All the fountains of the great deep were broken up. Genesis 7:11. The language does not describe rain from above, but rupture from below, sources long sealed suddenly giving way. The parallel is unsettling. Beneath frozen ground, beneath hardened crust, beneath systems assumed to be stable, forces continue to move. When those forces reach their limit, they do not negotiate. They break through. This is the deeper message carried by fire and water erupting from below. The surface can appear calm, frozen, even controlled. But pressure does not disappear simply because it is unseen. It accumulates. It seeks release. And when release comes, it ignores boundaries. Humans trust the most streets, foundations, and the ground itself. What happened reveals the same truth. Containment is temporary. Whether molten rock or buried water, what builds beneath the surface will eventually force its way out. Pressure does not dissolve, it waits. And when the ground itself begins to answer that pressure, the question is no longer if more will follow, but where. In a quiet moment far removed from storms and headlines, attention shifted indoors into a place of stillness and prayer. Inside a church in California, witnesses reported something they did not expect and could not easily explain. During a regular visit, several people noticed a subtle change in a statue of the Virgin Mary positioned near the altar. At first, it was barely perceptible. Then, slowly, the eyes appeared to move. According to those present, the motion was not abrupt or dramatic. It was gradual, soft, restrained, and deeply unsettling. Some described the eyes as shifting downward. Others said they appeared to glisten, as if filling with tears. No mechanical movement was visible. No external trigger was identified. The church remained quiet. There were no alarms, no sudden reactions, just a growing sense that something intimate and solemn was unfolding. Phones were raised cautiously. Footage circulated shortly afterward, showing what viewers interpreted as slight movement in the statue's eyes, paired with reflections that looked unusually fluid. The expression on the statue's face appeared unchanged, yet many felt the emotion in the room shift. Some stood frozen, others knelt instinctively. A few quietly stepped outside, shaken but silent. Church officials urged calm and avoided immediate conclusions. Lighting conditions, camera angles, and natural reflections were suggested as possible explanations. Optical illusions are known to occur in enclosed spaces, with candles, polished surfaces, and low ambient light. Yet questions persisted not because science offered no theories, but because timing and reaction felt unusual. This was not a staged moment. It was not announced. It emerged quietly, witnessed by ordinary people during an ordinary day. What stood out most was the response. There was no panic, no shouting. Instead, there was stillness. Prayer followed naturally. Some spoke of sorrow, others of comfort. Many described a heavy emotional presence that lingered even after the moment passed. Whether illusion or something more, the effect on those present was undeniable. Events like this occupy a difficult space between belief and explanation, between faith and analysis. Throughout history, religious images have been reported to weep, move, or change appearance during times of social stress and uncertainty. Skeptics often point to environmental factors. Believers point to meaning rather than mechanism. In this case, neither side rushed to claim certainty. What makes the moment significant is not the object itself, but what it stirred. In a period marked by extreme weather, instability, and fear, people found themselves drawn back to prayer not out of habit, but out of need. The reaction was human before it was theological. For many watching the footage online, the image raised a quiet question. When signs appear in places of faith rather than in the sky, are they meant to be studied or felt? If this moment resonates with you, like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment saying, "May the Virgin Mary watch over us as we continue this story." What followed after this report did not come from a single building, but from patterns appearing again across regions, across symbols, and across the human conscience. While signs of reflection and unease spread across the land, attention quietly shifted toward the coastline, where the surface appeared calm, yet something below was clearly changing. Off the coast of Florida, sections of the seafloor began to weaken and collapse without warning. There were no hurricanes pushing waves inland, no earthquakes registered beneath the water, no visible disturbance on the surface. The ocean looked ordinary, almost peaceful, even as its foundations silently failed. Soon after, the consequences began to surface not as debris or oil, but as life displaced from the depths. Along multiple stretches of coastline, strange and unsettling marine creatures started washing ashore. Some were identified as deep-sea species rarely, if ever, seen near land. Others could not be immediately classified. Pale, elongated bodies lay scattered across the sand, their skin thin and translucent, their forms seemingly unsuited for sunlight or shallow water. Fish with abnormally large eyes adapted for total darkness were found stranded in daylight, their bodies motionless as waves rolled past. In several cases, sharp-toothed creatures, normally confined to deep ocean trenches, appeared lifeless along the tide line. Their anatomy suggested extreme pressure environments, not coastal shallows. Some had collapsed fins. Others showed no visible injury at all, as if simply forced upward too quickly to survive. What disturbed observers most was not only the appearance of these creatures, but the timing. The strandings followed the seabed disturbances closely. There were no hurricanes to churn the ocean, no earthquakes to violently displace habitats, no sudden surface temperature changes large enough to explain mass displacement. The sea had not been stirred from above, it was reacting from below. Residents and local officials described the scenes as deeply unsettling. Beaches that once felt familiar now felt foreign. The shoreline carried a heavy stillness, the smell of salt mixed with something older, mineral-like, as if the sea itself had released what it had held for generations. Children were kept away, locals avoided the water. Fishermen reported empty nets in some areas and unfamiliar catches in others. Marine biologists suggested several explanations: pressure shifts caused by collapsing seabed structures, sudden changes in oxygen levels, or deep habitats failing and forcing organisms upward in desperation. Each theory held scientific merit, yet none could fully explain the scale, the clustering, or the speed at which these events unfolded. These were not isolated strandings. They occurred across multiple coastal regions within a short span of time. What emerged was not panic, but unease. The sense that something foundational had changed, that the ocean was no longer behaving as a stable barrier, but as a system under strain. The creatures washing ashore were not invaders. They were refugees displaced by forces unseen. The message beneath these events is unmistakable. When unseen foundations weaken, collapse does not announce itself with sound or spectacle. It reveals itself through what surfaces, through what is expelled. Stability cannot be judged by calm appearances alone. And when the sea begins returning what it has long concealed, the boundary between what is hidden and what is revealed grows dangerously thin. Nature does not wait for headlines or explanations. It responds first. Across the United States, animals have begun appearing far outside their normal habitats, behaving in ways that even seasoned observers struggle to explain. These movements are not gradual migrations or seasonal shifts. They are abrupt, disoriented, and widespread. On the frozen surface of Lake Michigan, witnesses reported cold-blooded creatures stranded on the ice, animals biologically incapable of surviving prolonged freezing temperatures. Fish and amphibians were found motionless, their bodies preserved by the cold. These species do not climb onto ice voluntarily. Their presence there suggests rapid displacement, confusion, or a sudden change beneath the surface that forced them upward and outward. Above the ground, the skies showed similar disruption. Birds were seen abruptly changing direction mid-flight under clear skies, with no visible storms, wind shifts, or pressure fronts. Entire flocks altered course at once, breaking established migratory paths. Pilots and birdwatchers alike described the movement as sharp and synchronized, as if responding to something unseen rather than environmental cues. In rivers across multiple states, fish surfaced abnormally. Along stretches of the Mississippi River and its tributaries, large numbers of fish were observed floating near the surface, gasping or drifting lifelessly downstream. Water temperatures had not spiked. Pollution reports did not account for the scale. Oxygen depletion was considered, yet measurements varied from location to location. What remained consistent was timing. These events appeared almost simultaneously across wide regions. Another unsettling sign followed. Long bands of thick, white foam formed on major waterways, stretching for miles. This was not the light froth typical after rainfall or industrial runoff. The foam was dense, slow-moving, and persistent. In some areas, it collected along riverbanks in heavy layers, resisting dispersion. Residents described the smell as sharp and unfamiliar, prompting authorities to issue advisories while investigations began. Scientists offered explanations for each event individually. Rapid temperature shifts can stun aquatic life. Chemical interactions can create foam. Birds can alter routes due to subtle atmospheric changes. All of this is true, yet what unsettled observers was not any single explanation but the pattern. These reactions occurred together, across land, water, and sky, within the same narrow window of time. In Scripture, this behavior is not described as random. The beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens, and the fish of the sea are taken away. Hosea 4:3. The verse does not point first to storms or earthquakes, but to imbalance when creation responds to conditions humanity may not yet fully perceive. Animals rely on instincts humans no longer possess. They sense pressure changes, magnetic shifts, chemical imbalances, and disruptions below the surface long before instruments register alarms. When animals move first, it is often because something has already changed. What we are witnessing is not panic in nature, but reaction, a response to stress accumulating across systems that once felt stable. The question is not why animals are behaving strangely. The question is what they are responding to, and this response is not finished. Watch closely, because what follows does not come from animals or water, but from human systems pushed to their limits. Across the quiet early hours, a sound began to spread low, resonant, and unfamiliar. It was not thunder. It was not aircraft. It did not rise and fade like wind. Witnesses described it as a deep, metallic tone, echoing through the sky like a trumpet blown from a distance too vast to measure. In neighborhoods around Phoenix, residents stepped outside, phones in hand, scanning the horizon for a source that never appeared. The sound did not come from one direction. It seemed to hang overhead, vibrating through the air and into the chest. Some recordings captured a sustained blast lasting several seconds, followed by silence, then another, slightly altered in pitch. Others described layered tones, as if multiple horns were sounding at once. The sky above remained clear. No storms, no military activity announced, no visible explanation. What unsettled people most was the reaction it provoked. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, traffic slowed, animals became restless, dogs whined or hid, birds fell silent. The sound did not trigger panic, but a heavy stillness, a shared sense that something was different. Many described a pressure in their ears, others a vibration felt more than heard. Officials suggested possible causes: atmospheric pressure shifts, distant industrial noise, aircraft resonance, or sound traveling unusually far due to temperature inversions. Each explanation addressed mechanics, yet none fully accounted for the tone itself, its clarity, its depth, or the way it appeared and vanished without pattern. The sound did not behave like noise carried from afar. It behaved like a signal. Similar reports emerged from other regions within days, each separated by distance but united by description. Long, trumpet-like blasts, clear skies, no visible source. The repetition raised questions not about whether the sound was real, but why it was being heard at all and why now. Throughout history, unusual sounds in the sky have been associated with moments of transition, warning, or awakening. Whether natural or not, these sounds carried psychological weight. People did not argue when they heard them. They listened. Some stood quietly, others prayed. A few turned back indoors unsettled, unable to explain why the sound lingered in their thoughts long after it faded from the air. The sky gave no answers, only echoes. And this was not the final sound reported. Stay with us, because what followed was seen as well as heard, and it deepened the question of what the sky is trying to say. In snow-covered streets, open fields, and frozen parks, small groups of people were seen kneeling in prayer outdoors. There were no banners, no microphones, no scheduled events. No one had called them together. They gathered because words ran out and control was gone. These moments were not dramatic. They were restrained, almost fragile. People stood shoulder to shoulder against the cold, heads bowed, hands clasped, breath visible in the air. Some prayed silently, others whispered. A few simply knelt without speaking at all. The setting mattered. No shelter, no warmth, no comfort, only exposure. It was as if the conditions themselves stripped away pretense and left something raw and honest behind. Observers described this response as instinctive rather than religious routine. When power failed, when travel stopped, when plans collapsed, prayer emerged not as tradition but as reflex. Technology had limits, forecasts had limits, preparation had limits, and at that boundary, many turned inward, not outward, to humility rather than solutions. Psychologists often describe moments like this as a search for meaning under stress. But those present describe something deeper: surrender. The recognition that effort alone was insufficient. That control had slipped away. In such moments, prayer becomes less about asking for outcomes and more about grounding the spirit when certainty dissolves. Scripture speaks directly to this kind of response. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. Psalm 56:3. The verse does not deny fear. It acknowledges it, and then redirects it. Another passage echoes the posture seen in the snow. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Stillness, not action, becomes the point of contact. Winter, in this sense, tested more than physical endurance. It tested faith, patience, and emotional resilience. The cold exposed vulnerability, especially among those already exhausted by years of instability. Yet within that exposure, something unexpected appeared. Solidarity without coordination, prayer without instruction, humility without spectacle. Not everyone knelt, not everyone prayed, but the image lingered because it revealed a truth often hidden by comfort. When human systems reach their limits, the spirit searches for footing elsewhere. It does not always find answers, but it seeks alignment. These scenes did not resolve the crisis. The cold remained, the disruptions continued, but something shifted inside those who knelt. In the absence of control, they chose reverence. In uncertainty, they chose trust. And that choice, quiet, unannounced, and unmeasured, may be one of the clearest signals of all. What has unfolded is not a random collection of disasters, and it is not a message meant to stir panic. It is a sequence. Extreme cold presses communities to their limits. The ground releases what was buried. The sea exposes what was hidden. Nature reacts before people do. And finally, the human spirit responds when control disappears. Each event connects to the next, forming a pattern that cannot be ignored. The greatest danger in moments like these is not fear. Fear is natural, and it passes. The real danger is indifference, the quiet habit of accepting disruption as normal, of scrolling past warning signs, of assuming that instability no longer carries meaning. History shows that collapse rarely begins with chaos. It begins when people stop paying attention. This is not a call to run. It is a call to awaken, to recognize limits, to understand that human systems, no matter how advanced, are fragile. When foundations weaken, whether physical, environmental, or moral, security does not come from denial. It comes from awareness, humility, and alignment with what endures beyond systems and structures. Awakening does not require answers to every question. It requires honesty. Honesty about uncertainty, honesty about dependence, honesty about where trust is placed when stability fades. In times of pressure, awareness itself becomes a form of preparation. The signs described throughout this investigation are not presented to entertain or to shock. They are presented to invite reflection, to slow down, to listen, to consider whether the world is not only changing around us, but asking something of us. If this message opened your eyes, leave a comment below. Stay with us by subscribing, and thank you for watching. Are now facing temperatures, while northern regions are enduring unusually harsh winter conditions. Arctic cold air has penetrated deep into southern states, bringing cold and even snow to places typically known for their warm, temperate climates. What was once considered unusual is now repeating itself. Similar cold patterns have occurred repeatedly in recent years, forming a cycle that many consider unprecedented. Scientists explain these changes through variations in atmospheric circulation, jet stream behavior, and pressure systems. Technically, there are logical reasons. But for many residents living through this period, the experience is far more unsettling than the explanations suggest. The cold arrives suddenly, spreading and disrupting daily life in unprepared areas. Power systems were overloaded, traffic slowed, and communities were forced to adapt without warning. The shock came not only from the temperature, but also from the fact that familiar weather patterns seemed to change too quickly. In the Bible, times when upheaval affects entire regions at once are often described not simply as disasters, but as signals meant to awaken attention. These warnings are not depicted as tools for panic, but as calls for reflection, humility, and readiness. When conditions once considered rare begin to repeat themselves, and when the boundaries defining climate and geography begin to blur, the message becomes impossible to ignore. The Bible speaks repeatedly of seasons in which nature itself reacts, when patterns shift to remind humanity that control is limited and certainty can vanish without warning. This storm is noteworthy not only for its strength but also for its scope of impact. Cold air is spreading to places it wouldn't normally reach, at the most unexpected times, affecting millions of people simultaneously. This raises a question that transcends meteorology and statistics. Why is this happening now? And why is it happening everywhere at the same time? As familiar climates change and long-held assumptions are shattered, many are wondering whether these phenomena are simply weather or part of something larger that needs attention before it's too late. Following a widespread winter storm, a bizarre phenomenon occurred that astonished many. During a major blizzard in Iowa, people looked up and witnessed a completely unexpected sight. The entire sky turned pink and purple, creating a strange spectacle over the falling snow. It wasn't a fleeting moment or a distant reflection. The colors spread across the horizon, transforming the storm into a strange and unsettling spectacle. Videos of the sky quickly went viral online, prompting people across the country to try and understand how such a sudden change could occur in the middle of a blizzard. Scientists and weather experts explained that the phenomenon was due to the refraction of sunlight at sunset as it passed through thick clouds and ice crystals in the atmosphere. Under very specific conditions, light can refract and reflect, creating the pink and purple hues. Although the explanation was based on physics, experts also noted that this combination of conditions is extremely rare. The angle of the sun, the density of the clouds, and the presence of ice crystals all had to combine perfectly for the sky to have such color. What made this event particularly striking was its scale. The color change didn't just affect a section of the sky or a specific neighborhood. It covered the entire sky, altering how people perceived their surroundings. Drivers, already struggling with poor visibility, found it even harder to judge distance and movement. Familiar roads and buildings looked strange, and the storm made people feel more disoriented than usual. The environment was no longer what people expected when it snowed. Even after hearing the scientific explanation, many viewers described the experience as deeply moving. The sky was undeniably beautiful, yet it also evoked an indescribable feeling. People spoke of a sense of unease, as if they were witnessing something significant, not just a coincidence. The contrast between the serene beauty of the colors and the harshness of the storm created an indelible impression, lingering in the minds of those who saw it. The Bible often speaks of celestial signs appearing before times of transition, moments that should be noticed, not ignored. These signs aren't always destructive. Sometimes they are visual, symbolic, and subtle, offered to direct one's gaze upwards. When the sky itself changed color in the midst of a storm, it naturally raises a deeper question. Was it merely a rare optical effect? Or could it also be a reminder that times of change are often heralded by signs that need to be seen, contemplated, and understood? As the sky heralded chaos in the American heartland, the land along the western edge of the United States was also undergoing a transformation. Along the California coast, the devastation was no longer gradual. Giant waves from powerful storms crashed against cliffs, accelerating erosion and causing entire areas of land to crumble into the sea. Roads that once ran along the coast were now cracked, uneven, and in some places had disappeared entirely. Homes once considered safe inland just a few years ago now rested on unstable ground, some destroyed, others on the verge of collapse. What was once a symbol of enduring strength and prosperity was becoming increasingly fragile. What makes this situation particularly alarming is that it wasn't the result of a single storm or an isolated incident. Scientists and federal agencies point to a combination of factors: stronger storms, rising sea levels, saturated soil, and persistent pressure along seismic fault lines. Each factor individually can be controlled, but when combined, they create a cycle of increasing devastation with each passing season. Events once called once in a century are no longer rare. They are repeating, piling up, and occurring faster than existing systems can handle. Lowly beneath the surface lies an even more alarming reality. Many coastal areas of California are slowly subsiding, a process so slow that it often goes unnoticed until disaster strikes. This land subsidence weakens cliffs, destroys foundations, and reduces the effectiveness of breakwaters and other defensive structures. Engineers can repair roads and rebuild barriers, but when the ground itself is shifting, all remedies are only temporary. The danger isn't always apparent, but its consequences are irreversible. For the people, the psychological impact is profound. Communities that once believed they had carefully planned now face repeated evacuations and constant uncertainty. Familiar landscapes are changing, and long-held assumptions of safety are no longer true. The coastline no longer resembles a boundary but a moving threat, a threat that cannot be fully predicted or controlled. In the Bible, the collapse of foundations is often used as a powerful warning. It's a reminder that what seems solid on the outside may be weak on the inside. These biblical passages are not intended to sow fear, but to encourage reflection and preparation. When foundations begin to crumble, the question arises not only of how to rebuild, but also whether the land on which they are built is still reliable. As the California coast continues to erode, a deeper question emerges, one that transcends engineering and climate models. What happens when even the most solid foundations begin to crumble? And are these changes simply a natural cycle or a sign that warrants greater attention and caution? Before we move on, please give us a like and subscribe to support us. Every contribution helps. Thanks so much. During a powerful storm system, witnesses across the plains observed a phenomenon rarely documented in nature. Two tornadoes forming side by side, rotating in near perfect synchronization. While multiple funnels can sometimes appear within the same storm, experts emphasize that such parallel alignment and mirrored motion is extremely uncommon. Storm chasers described the scene as unsettling, noting that the tornadoes did not behave chaotically, but instead appeared coordinated, as if responding to the same unseen rhythm. The visual alone was enough to draw national attention, but what followed intensified the mystery. As the storm progressed, residents reported hearing a strange sound cutting through the wind, a deep, metallic tone resembling a trumpet. Unlike thunder, which is sharp and momentary, this sound was prolonged, resonant, and carried across long distances. It did not rise and fall like normal storm noise. Instead, it lingered, steady and piercing, leaving many listeners shaken. People instinctively knew it was different. Some stopped what they were doing. Others began recording, unsure of what they were hearing. What makes the event even more difficult to dismiss is that the sound was captured by multiple recording devices in different locations. Doorbell cameras, security systems, and cell phones all picked up the same tone, ruling out localized interference or equipment malfunction. When meteorologists analyzed the recordings, they struggled to match the sound to known atmospheric phenomena. It did not align with thunder frequencies, industrial noise, aircraft, or seismic activity. Even among experts, there was no clear consensus on what could produce such a sustained, trumpet-like resonance within a storm. For many observers, the combination of synchronized tornadoes and unexplained sound carried symbolic weight. In the Bible, the sound of a trumpet is repeatedly associated with moments of divine intervention, warning, and awakening. One of the most well-known references appears in 1 Thessalonians 4:16, where a trumpet signals a pivotal moment in God's plan. While science seeks physical causes, Scripture speaks to meaning and timing, prompting believers to look beyond mechanics and ask why such a sign would appear now. This event unsettles not because it lacks explanation, but because it challenges assumptions. Storms are expected to bring wind and rain, not coordinated movement and unfamiliar sound. When nature adds an audible signal to visible chaos, it naturally raises a deeper question. If storms are now carrying both force and message, what exactly is being signaled, and are we prepared to listen? As storms roared above and land shifted below, strange order emerged silently beneath calm inland waters. At a quiet lake in Illinois, observers witnessed a phenomenon that immediately puzzled scientists and locals alike. Fish were seen stacking vertically in the water, forming a tall, moving column that rose and shifted as a single unit. This was not a loose school or a fleeting formation. The structure appeared deliberate, organized, and sustained something never before documented on this scale. Those who saw it described the sight as unnatural, as if the lake itself had rearranged its life into a living tower. Ultrasound and sonar measurements were quickly deployed to understand what was happening beneath the surface. The readings confirmed what the eye could barely believe: a dense, column-like structure composed entirely of living organisms, moving together in precise coordination. The formation held its shape as it drifted, maintaining vertical alignment instead of dispersing horizontally, which is how fish typically respond to external stimuli. This was not random movement. It was collective behavior following a pattern no one could readily identify. What deepened the mystery was the absence of any obvious cause. There were no predators in the water that might force the fish into defensive clustering. Water quality tests showed no chemical contamination, oxygen depletion, or temperature anomalies. There were no sudden currents, no seismic disturbances, and no environmental changes that would normally explain such behavior. Biologists studying the footage admitted they could not identify a known trigger that would cause aquatic life to organize in this way without an immediate threat. Fish are among the most sensitive indicators of environmental change. They react quickly to pressure shifts, vibrations, and unseen disturbances long before humans notice anything unusual. Yet in this case, there was no clear danger to react to, at least none that instruments could detect. The formation suggested response rather than panic, alignment rather than escape, as if the creatures were reacting to something subtle and unseen. In the Bible, the sea is often portrayed as a realm that responds to forces beyond human perception. Scripture describes moments when waters part, creatures move, and nature obeys commands that are invisible to the human eye. These passages suggest that creation is not chaotic, but attentive, capable of responding to pressures and signals humans may not yet understand. The Illinois fish wall unsettles not because it appears violent or destructive, but because it reveals coordination without explanation. When living creatures move together without visible cause, it invites a deeper question. What invisible force could prompt creation to act in perfect sync, and why would such a response appear now, amid so many other unusual signs? As living creatures aligned in silence beneath the water, something ancient stirred within the stone itself. In the deserts of Arizona, an unexpected discovery has drawn intense attention from historians, archaeologists, and local witnesses alike. An ancient stone altar bearing Hebrew inscriptions, dated by experts to the 1st century, was uncovered during routine surveying work. The markings did not resemble decorative art or random symbols, but deliberate script consistent with early religious use. Even before anything unusual occurred, the altar itself raised questions. How such an object came to rest beneath the soil of the American Southwest remains unexplained. What followed transformed curiosity into unease. According to multiple witnesses, the stone altar began to vibrate on its own. There was no nearby machinery, no drilling, no vehicles, and no surface activity that could explain the movement. The vibration was steady and rhythmic, continuing long enough to be clearly observed. Those present described an immediate sense that what they were witnessing was not accidental, but purposeful. To rule out natural causes, sensitive measuring instruments were brought in. Seismic monitors showed no earthquake activity, no underground tremors, and no pressure shifts that could account for the motion. The surrounding ground remained completely still, yet the altar continued to move, isolated in its motion, as if responding to something imperceptible. Engineers and technicians confirmed that the vibration did not match patterns caused by wind, resonance, or mechanical interference. Perhaps the most striking detail came from those who stood closest. Witnesses consistently described the sensation not as shaking or impact, but as something resembling a heartbeat. The stone did not jolt or scrape. It pulsed. The movement felt organic rather than violent, measured rather than chaotic. For many, this detail made the experience far more unsettling than a sudden crack or collapse ever could. In the Bible, stone is often used as a symbol of permanence, testimony, and witness. Scripture declares that when the time comes, even the stones will cry out, and that God will shake not only nations, but the very foundations beneath them. These passages suggest moments when what is normally silent becomes expressive, and what is fixed becomes active. The vibrating altar raises questions that extend beyond archaeology or physics. Ancient inscriptions, rhythmic motion, and the absence of measurable cause form a combination difficult to dismiss. When stone, an object defined by stillness, begins to move on its own, it challenges assumptions about where meaning can reside. If rocks are meant to speak when the time comes, as Scripture says, then what message was being conveyed in that quiet desert moment? And why did it emerge now, amid so many other signs demanding attention? As stone itself began to move, something long hidden beneath the earth was finally uncovered. During a geological survey in the southwestern United States, researchers encountered an underground chamber unlike anything they expected to find. Beneath layers of compacted soil and rock lay a sealed vault, deliberately constructed and carefully concealed. This was not a natural cave or a modern structure. Its walls showed signs of intentional design, suggesting that whatever was placed inside was meant to remain hidden for a very long time. Inside the vault, investigators discovered a collection of scrolls arranged in a manner strikingly similar to ancient Middle Eastern archives. Each scroll was tightly sealed and marked with symbols resembling early Hebrew script. The ink, layout, and spacing appeared deliberate rather than decorative. Experts noted that the organization of the scrolls suggested preservation, not storage for daily use. Everything about the chamber pointed to intention. Someone had wanted these texts protected, untouched, and unseen. The most unsettling discovery lay at the center of the vault. A skeletal figure was found positioned with its arms wrapped around the scrolls, as if holding them close. The posture did not suggest collapse or accident, but guardianship. There were no signs of struggle, no evidence of haste. It appeared as though the individual had remained there by choice, preserving the contents until death. The scene raised immediate questions about who this person was and what they believed they were protecting. Archaeologists quickly noted that the structure did not align with known indigenous cultures of the region, nor did it match any recognized modern architectural techniques. The materials, layout, and symbolic markings pointed elsewhere. Yet no clear historical record explains how such a vault came to exist beneath American soil. The absence of cultural context only deepened the mystery. In the Bible, there are repeated references to messages being hidden until an appointed time. Scripture speaks of words sealed for future generations, truths preserved until the moment they are meant to be revealed. These passages suggest that not all knowledge is intended for immediate understanding. Some messages are reserved, waiting for a specific season and a specific audience. The emergence of these buried scrolls at this moment feels difficult to separate from the broader pattern unfolding around the nation. When ancient messages surface alongside upheaval in the land, sea, and sky, coincidence becomes harder to accept. Why would something so carefully hidden emerge now? And if these scrolls were preserved for a particular generation, could it be that the time they were meant for has finally arrived? At first glance, each of these events could be viewed in isolation. A storm here, a strange sound there, an unexpected discovery beneath the ground. But when placed side by side, a pattern begins to emerge that is increasingly difficult to dismiss. These occurrences are not spread out across decades or confined to one region. They are unfolding within the same window of time, across different landscapes, involving the sky, the sea, the land, and what lies buried beneath it. The timing alone invites deeper scrutiny. What stands out is not just the number of events, but how they seem to touch every layer of the natural world. The atmosphere shifts with unprecedented storms and unfamiliar sounds. The waters respond with coordinated movement among living creatures. The ground itself trembles, erodes, and reveals objects meant to remain hidden. Even ancient stone and sealed messages long buried are drawn into motion. This is not a single system under stress, it is multiple systems reacting at once. Scientists and experts can, and often do, offer explanations for each phenomenon on its own. Weather patterns change. Animal behavior can be complex. Geological processes are slow and subtle. Archaeological discoveries happen by chance. Yet explanation does not erase pattern. When rare events begin clustering together, repetition becomes meaningful. The question shifts from, can this be explained, to why is this happening now, and why in this sequence? In Scripture, moments of transition are often marked by convergence. Signs appear not in isolation, but in waves across nations, elements, and people. The Bible describes these periods as times when creation responds collectively, as though reacting to an unseen signal. These moments are not portrayed as random chaos, but as ordered disruption, change with purpose rather than accident. What makes the current pattern unsettling is its coherence. Storms do not merely intensify, they arrive with unfamiliar characteristics. Sounds accompany destruction. Life organizes without visible cause. Ancient objects surface as if summoned. Each event reinforces the next, forming a narrative that builds rather than resets. The more pieces are added, the clearer the outline becomes. This does not demand immediate conclusions, but it does demand attention. Patterns exist to be recognized, not ignored. When signs align across different domains of nature and history, they serve as signals that something larger may be unfolding. Whether one views these events through science, faith, or cautious observation, their convergence suggests that this moment is different from those that came before. If these events were meant to be warnings, Scripture suggests they would not arrive quietly or alone. They would come layered, repeated, and unmistakable to those willing to see. The pattern now forming raises a final, unavoidable question. If this is not coincidence, then what is it preparing us for, and are we paying attention before the next sign appears? Throughout the Bible, moments of great change are never introduced with panic, but with instruction. Again and again, Scripture urges people not to be afraid, but to be watchful. Jesus did not warn his followers so they would live in terror. He warned them so they would live prepared. In Matthew 24, he speaks clearly about signs in the heavens, disturbances on the earth, and confusion among nations, not as an end meant to overwhelm, but as a signal meant to awaken understanding. The emphasis is never chaos, but readiness. Biblical warnings are often quiet before they become unmistakable. They arrive as patterns, not explosions. In the days of Noah, life continued as normal until the moment it could not. In the time of Lot, people carried on with routine, unaware that the window to respond was closing. Scripture consistently shows that judgment does not begin with destruction, but with mercy, time given to recognize the moment and respond wisely. The purpose of signs is not fear, but opportunity. When the land trembles, the seas behave strangely, and the sky no longer looks familiar, the Bible frames these shifts as birth pains rather than endings. Birth pains are uncomfortable, even alarming, but they point towards something coming, not something finished. Romans 8 speaks of creation groaning, not in despair, but in anticipation. This language suggests that the natural world reacts before humanity fully understands why. Creation senses pressure before people recognize the season. The return of ancient messages and buried truths carries similar meaning in Scripture. The book of Daniel describes words sealed until the time of the end, not lost, not forgotten, but preserved. Revelation echoes this idea, portraying a moment when hidden things are brought into the light. These passages remind us that God's timing operates beyond human schedules. When what was hidden begins to surface, it is meant to be read, considered, and acted upon. Preparation, according to the Bible, is not about storing fear or predicting dates. It is about alignment. It is about grounding one's life in truth, humility, and discernment. Jesus repeatedly emphasized awareness, knowing the season even if the hour remains unknown. To watch means to pay attention. To be ready means to live intentionally. To understand the moment means to look beyond distraction and recognize significance. These events do not announce destruction. They quietly signal urgency. The call is not to panic, but to awaken. Not to speculate endlessly, but to reflect deeply. Scripture is clear. When signs appear, ignoring them is more dangerous than misunderstanding them. The invitation is simple but serious. Stay alert, stay grounded, stay prepared, and above all, do not turn away when the signs are placed before you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and keep an eye out for our next video. Leave a comment and let us know what you think. Launching waves of mud into the air. The effect was so unnatural that many witnesses compared it to a volcanic eruption, only this one was happening in the middle of one of the world's largest financial districts. Emergency crews rushed in, but confusion spread quickly. There were no burst sewage lines, no reports of damaged piping, no chemical spills, and no recorded infrastructure failures of any kind. Every explanation the city prepared for normal emergencies collapsed immediately. Firefighters described the mud as dense, heavy, and warm, unlike any substance produced by New York's underground systems. Hazmat teams detected no industrial chemicals. Geologists could not match the material to any known sediment or mineral mixture present beneath Manhattan, and engineers confirmed that such pressure strong enough to lift manhole covers and bend metal vents was not possible from the existing utility systems. As crews attempted to contain the flow, the mud continued to expand across multiple blocks, climbing up building foundations and flooding basements. Streetlights flickered, pedestrians scrambled. Store owners barricaded entrances using crates and debris, terrified that the black mass would seep inside. By midday, the footage had gone viral worldwide. People demanded answers. Officials offered none. Speculation surged. Was it an underground rupture linked to shifting bedrock? A chemical reaction beneath aging infrastructure? A previously unknown natural event? Something geological stirring beneath the city? But to many, the timing and intensity of this phenomenon felt far stranger than any natural explanation could satisfy. Some pastors and biblical scholars immediately pointed to Romans 8:22. The whole creation has been groaning, suggesting that the earth itself may be reacting, releasing signs before major spiritual turning points. And the fact that New York, one of the world's cultural and economic capitals, was the first place struck only intensified the sense that something prophetic might be unfolding. As night fell, residents watched anxiously as cleanup teams struggled to remove the mud. But deep beneath the city, sensors continued registering faint vibrations like something was still moving, still pushing, still waiting. And this was only the beginning. If what happened in New York shocked you, wait until you see what unfolded next, because the skies over Florida revealed something even more unsettling. It began with a stillness and eerie quiet that settled over Florida long before the first photograph appeared online. Residents described the air as heavy, as though something unseen was pressing down upon the atmosphere. Then, slowly, the sky began to change. Across the horizon, massive black cloud formations emerged, not soft or wispy like typical storm clouds, but thick, clustered, and strangely solid-shaped like floating boulders suspended above the land. They layered over one another in unnatural stacks, forming walls and towers of darkness that stretched for miles. Helicopter pilots later said it looked as if the sky had grown mountains. But what unsettled people most wasn't the color or size, it was the weight of the clouds. They didn't drift. They hovered, motionless, almost watchful. As the day faded, lightning began to pulse inside the cloud clusters, illuminating them from within like lanterns trapped in tar. Each flash revealed fleeting shapes, faces staring outward, wing-like forms fused into the darkness, trumpet-shaped outlines, and distorted silhouettes that appeared for only a fraction of a second before dissolving again. People froze, filming from their porches. Cars pulled over along the highway. For a moment, the entire state seemed to stop. Social media exploded with panic and awe. Words like end-time sky, omen, and prophetic warning flooded comment sections. What was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon storm now looked like something torn from ancient apocalyptic manuscripts. Meteorologists struggled to explain what they were seeing. No known atmospheric model could account for the symmetry, the density, or the stability of the formations. Even experts admitted the clouds behaved more like geological structures than weather systems, immovable, sculpted, deliberate. Some scientists suggested unusual temperature inversions. Others blamed wildfire smoke or rare cumulonimbus anomalies, but none of them could explain why the clouds looked almost constructed. And it's here that many believers turn to Scripture. In Joel 2, the prophet describes a day when the heavens would display wonders, and the sun, moon, and sky would be marked by signs signaling divine intervention. The imagery of darkened heavens, ominous formations, and supernatural impressions in the sky echoes eerily across the centuries. It's as if the ancient words reached forward into this moment, interpreting what science could not. To some, the Florida sky was not just a storm but a message, a visual reminder that creation still responds to its creator, that the heavens, like the earth, can groan, tremble, and warn. And while skeptics dismiss the shapes as illusions and coincidences, thousands who witnessed the event firsthand said the same thing. This didn't feel natural. This felt deliberate. And what came next only deepened that fear, because beneath the surface of America, something far stranger was waiting to be uncovered. What happened next felt like something torn from an archaeological thriller, except this discovery was real, accidental, and far more disturbing than anything found in a textbook. In a quiet rural region far from major cities, a group of hikers noticed a portion of the ground had collapsed overnight. At first, they assumed it was erosion from recent storms. But when they approached the edge of the sinkhole, their flashlights revealed a narrow opening in the earth, an entrance leading downward into darkness. They squeezed through the gap and found themselves standing inside a massive hidden cavern, untouched and uncharted. What awaited them inside defied all logic. Carved into the cavern walls were enormous humanoid figures, each towering several meters high, with elongated heads, stretched jawlines, and symmetrical facial features that resembled neither human nor animal. The statues appeared impossibly ancient, yet their surfaces were smooth, polished, and carved with a precision no primitive tool could produce. But what unsettled the explorers most were the markings' intricate spirals, star patterns, and unfamiliar symbols running across the stone like a language no civilization had ever documented. These carvings pulsed with a strange uniformity, as if they had been placed with mathematical intention. Every scholar who later studied the footage agreed, nothing in North American archaeology resembles these figures. And yet the cavern itself had not existed, or at least had not been accessible the day before. Residents confirmed they had felt ground shaking late that night, a low rumble that rattled windows and disturbed livestock. Hours later, the earth opened just enough to reveal the entrance. The discovery ignited fierce debate. Some claimed the statues must belong to a forgotten ancient civilization. Others whispered theories of deception, rituals, or extraterrestrial symbolism. A few insisted it was a spiritual sign, something allowed to surface for a reason, in a time when hidden things are being revealed across the world. For believers, the connection felt immediate. Scripture often speaks of God exposing what has been buried, bringing secrets into the light, and allowing signs to emerge from the depths of the earth. And in a moment when the skies, the cities, and the land itself seemed to be reacting, this cavern felt like part of a larger pattern, one pointing toward a prophetic unraveling. The hikers left the site shaken, unsure whether they had uncovered history or something meant to remain hidden. And what comes next is even stranger. Before we continue, make sure to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the unfolding signs ahead. Reports flooded in from multiple states: Texas, Colorado, Georgia, even parts of the Midwest. People stepped outside expecting an ordinary evening, only to look up and freeze. Suspended above the cloud layers were white and gold ribbons of light, long shimmering bands stretching across the heavens like threads woven into the night. These weren't auroras. They weren't aircraft trails, drones, spotlights, lasers, satellites, or anything recognizable. These lights moved, but not in a way that obeyed wind or gravity. Witnesses described them as dancing, twisting into gentle spirals, bending into elegant curves, and pulsing like living waves. They didn't drift across the sky or slide from one horizon to another. Instead, they hovered in a fixed part of the atmosphere, anchored, as if held in place by an unseen hand. Yet within that anchored space, they swayed with a grace that felt intentional. Some said the ribbons reminded them of the northern lights, but softer, purer, like strands of holiness drawn across the sky. Others said the movement was too rhythmic, too synchronized to be natural. It looked almost like worship light praising its maker. One woman in Texas described the moment with trembling words. It was as if the sky itself was singing without sound. Parents carried their children outside to watch. Elderly residents wept. Many stood in silence, unable to move, feeling something stirred deep within, a mixture of awe and unease, reverence and fear. And again the question returned. What are we witnessing? For believers, the answer seemed unmistakable. The Bible speaks often of God revealing His glory through light. Moses encountering the glory that shone like fire, the shepherds seeing the radiance of the Lord, the prophets describing the splendor of God's presence filling the heavens. But the imagery in this event felt closest to the prophetic words of Luke 21:25. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and even more so to the psalmist's declaration that the heavens declare the glory of God. For those watching, it felt exactly like that, heaven declaring, warning, awakening. Scientists scrambled for explanations: atmospheric refractions, magnetic anomalies, ice crystal reflections. Yet none of these theories addressed the most alarming detail. The light ribbons behaved as though they had intention. They never spread outward, never faded gradually, never responded to shifts in weather. They remained in the same region of sky for nearly an hour, dancing with a rhythm and softness that suggested intelligence or obedience. Some pastors later said they sensed that the lights were not merely atmospheric but symbolic, an invitation to look upward at a time when the world is obsessed with what is happening below. A reminder that glory still reigns above chaos, a sign that heaven is not silent. And as the lights finally dimmed, fading back into the clouds as though being gently folded away, millions across America were left with the same haunting feeling. Something was communicating, something was warning, something was preparing, and the next sign would come not from the sky but from the earth tearing beneath America's feet. For generations, America's rural heartland has been a place of stability, fields that never change, land that has remained steady for centuries. Yet this time, the ground itself broke the rules, and the people living on that land woke up to a sight they will never forget. At dawn, farmers across several states stepped outside expecting to begin another normal day. Instead, they found their fields split open by long, jagged fractures stretching across the soil like scars burned into the earth. Some cracks were only a few inches wide, others large enough for a grown man to climb into, and several extended for miles, cutting through fences, crops, and property lines with no discernible pattern. What shocked residents most wasn't just the size of these fissures, it was the silence before their arrival. No earthquake alerts, no tremors strong enough to register, no warning at all. Seismologists confirmed that no measurable seismic activity occurred in the region prior to the event. It was as if the ground split open on its own, without the usual precursors of tectonic movement. Farmers described the displacement as resembling a violent underground pressure release, the type of soil movement usually seen after volcanic activity or deep earth gas pockets exploding upward. But these states had no active volcanoes, no fracking sites, no drilling operations, no mines, nothing that could explain such sudden, coordinated tearing of the landscape. Then the testimonies began pouring in. Residents living near the fields reported that hours before the cracks appeared, they had felt low, unsettling rumbles beneath their homes too weak to shake objects, but strong enough to vibrate through the floorboards. Some said they heard muffled groans from beneath the earth, as though something massive was shifting in the dark. Scientists analyzed soil samples and found signs of rapid subterranean expansion, but without any known source of pressure. Hydrologists detected odd shifts in water levels, suggesting underground reservoirs may have moved, but again, without cause. Everything pointed to an invisible force beneath the land, pushing. As the fractures widened, farmers found irrigation lines snapped clean, barns leaning at unnatural angles, and entire sections of farmland rendered unusable. The cost of the damage ran into the millions within days. But the financial loss wasn't what terrified these communities. It was the realization that the land, the thing they trusted most, was acting unpredictably. Believers quickly linked the phenomenon to Scripture. The Bible speaks of the earth groaning, shaking, and splitting as a precursor to divine moments. Jesus himself warned of earthquakes in diverse places as signs marking the last days' events that would escalate in occurrence, intensity, and strangeness. Here, in the quiet farmlands of America, that prophecy seemed to take physical form. Was this a natural anomaly, a geological mystery, or part of a larger pattern, one that stretched from the skies to the cities, from the mountains to the depths of the earth? Because what came after these fractures did not bring comfort, it brought fear. And if you think this was unsettling, wait until you see what explorers found deep inside the Grand Canyon. The next sign is unlike anything the world has ever seen. Some discoveries shake science, others shake faith, but this one shook the soul. The Grand Canyon, with all its towering cliffs and endless caverns, has long been a place of ancient mystery, yet nothing in its documented history prepared explorers for what they found after a recent rock collapse revealed a narrow, previously unknown passage. The entryway led deep, far deeper than typical canyon caves, into a corridor lined with mineral veins that shimmered like wet onyx. But at the far end of the cavern, where the air turned cold and the walls tightened into a natural chamber, their lanterns illuminated something that made one explorer drop his light in terror. Embedded into the rock face was a giant eye, not a carving, not a fossil, a living, biological eye, massive, wet, glistening, and undeniably alive. The creature, or whatever it belonged to, was hidden behind the stone, with only the eye exposed, as if the mountain itself was a mask covering an ancient, slumbering being. The eye blinked slowly, the lid sliding over its spherical surface with a slick, organic sheen. Every blink produced a faint, wet sound that echoed through the chamber like the first raindrop before a storm. The explorers froze, breathless, as the eye suddenly widened, and then it moved. The pupil expanded and contracted, adjusting to the lantern light. It shifted subtly at first, then unmistakably, turning its gaze directly toward the intruders. Several witnesses swore the eye expressed awareness, not instinct, not reflex awareness. It watched them, studied them, understood them. Around the eye, the surrounding wall pulsed softly, as if a fleshy membrane lay just beneath the stone. Veins or structures resembling veins throbbed with a faint luminescence. One explorer described it as the mountain breathing. Then came the vibration. A deep, low-frequency hum resonated through the floor, through their bodies, through the very air. It was not sound, it was sensation. A heartbeat felt in the bones. A warning. A presence awakening. Terrified beyond reason, the team fled the chamber, stumbling up through the narrow passage until daylight spilled over them like salvation. None of them spoke for nearly an hour. When they finally reported what they had seen, authorities blocked off the area, leaving more questions than answers. Scientists have offered no explanation. There is no known organism that matches the size, behavior, or physiology of the entity. No plausible evolutionary pathway, no precedent in paleontology, zoology, or mythology. And yet, the discovery echoes something deeply biblical. Scripture often describes hidden things that will be revealed in the final days, things beneath the earth and above the heavens, being shaken, exposed, brought into the open. The prophets wrote of creatures and signs that would provoke fear and awe, stirring humanity to recognize that the boundaries between the seen and unseen would not remain closed forever. In that dark chamber beneath the Grand Canyon, something ancient opened its eye, and the world above and the world beyond may never be the same again. In a world already shaken by natural anomalies, strange signs in the sky, and geological disturbances, one of the most unexpected warnings came not from a scientist, a theologian, or a prophet, but from a political figure whose words now echo with unsettling resonance. During a recent speech, former President Donald Trump confidently declared, "There will be no World War III." And in another moment, one captured and replayed millions of times, he stated, "The world will end in the Middle East." And report to that, to many, these statements were merely bold political rhetoric, but for others, especially those familiar with biblical prophecy, the words struck a deeper chord. Because whether intentional or not, Trump's declarations line up eerily with the prophetic blueprint outlined in Ezekiel, Daniel, and Revelation, especially the warnings concerning the final global conflict and the spiritual center of end-time events, Israel and the Middle East. Throughout Scripture, the Middle East is not just a geographical region, it is the stage upon which the final chapters of humanity unfold. Ezekiel speaks of a massive northern coalition descending upon Israel. Daniel describes a final world ruler rising out of political turmoil in that region. Revelation places the last battle, Armageddon, squarely in the land of Israel. So when a world leader publicly asserts that the world's ending will tie back to that same region, people begin to listen. Christian analysts quickly noted that Trump's words, though not framed as prophecy, echoed biblical themes with unusual accuracy. Some suggested that God has a pattern of using unexpected voices to deliver warnings, kings, rulers, and even unbelieving leaders who spoke truths greater than they understood. Scripture itself records several such moments, reminding believers that divine messages can sometimes come through unlikely mouths. But perhaps the most unsettling part of Trump's statements was his insistence on peace. "We will not have World War III," he said with absolute confidence. Yet the Bible contains a direct warning about such proclamations. In 1 Thessalonians 5-3, Paul writes, "When they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them." Is hafted does it. It is a prophecy widely interpreted to mean that in the final days, the world will experience a deceptive calm, a fragile, artificial peace just before chaos erupts. A lull before the storm. Trump's reassurance, therefore, did not comfort everyone. Instead, it raised questions. Why such certainty? Why such specific language? Why the Middle East? Some believe Trump was simply expressing political optimism. Others think he unintentionally touched on a deeper spiritual truth. And still others suggest that his words reflect a global shift, one in which geopolitics is aligning with a prophetic timeline unfolding faster than anyone expected. Regardless of one's perspective, one thing is undeniable. Trump's statements have reignited worldwide conversation about biblical prophecy, end-time alignment, and the role of world leaders in God's